Hello and welcome back to Tiltbrush. So this time I've gone over the next episode only, like only one more episode, which was about grouping. And otherwise I've just gone over all the things, like all the main more tools, and especially the more options here, even throughout, just to make sure to see how much left I have to learn. Because there's a few things which I already knew or know or are quite obvious. And I would like to get to the point as I only have like a month and a bit left, and I want to get started on an actual project, like product. And I really need to learn about the things which I don't know yet, for example, the environmental things. So that's why I took this approach. So first of all, grouping. So grouping is a feature which we saw at the end of last time, which I didn't talk about yet. We talked about the 3 selection tools. The selection like tools, yeah. And then the fourth one was group selection, and we never talked about that. So basically, group selection makes selected items connected. So let's say I have, let's switch it up. Let's have thick paint with the green. So let's have this, this, and this. These are 3 separate items. If I select one or select even 2, it would bring those 2. But then once I select this one again, they're not connected. So I may do this once, both together, but then once I stop it and I redo it, then it doesn't put them together. It's just one. So basically, what grouping does is once you select all of them, and then you click group selection, it even tells you grouped, and then by accident I missed that one. So now these 2 are grouped forever. So then when I stop selecting it, and even when I persist into PlayStation, so even if I would leave and come back, then when I reselect one of these, it puts them together. So basically, let's say you made a big object, like a tree or something was the example. You can just make it one group and then easily move them around whenever you want, rather than having to reselect everything every time, which can be very tedious and almost impossible if it's connected to the ground or something. So this is a really useful tool. This can also help you maybe draw something in the air and then put it in the environment later. And you can easily ungroup, so don't be worried that they're grouped forever. So now you can see it's alone again. So that's basically the grouping feature. So yeah, you can ungroup, and each item can only have one group. These 2 can only have one grouping. So it's either these 3 or it's all of them. Basically, yeah, it's basically that there cannot be 2 groups for the same object. And then the poly, so now this is where I sort of went on. I also checked out some tutorials to make sure I'm getting this right. But the poly website, so basically there's a website which you can go to automatically, but you can just search it up through here. You can open it on my PC. And this under Poly on more, Poly library. So basically on the Poly website, there's lots of creations which you can download, and you can also upload your own. So you can share to Poly, you can see. So basically what you would do is you would save a certain object and you would download it or export it. You can export the world, you can do it as a whole world. So for example, if I go on the sketchbook, like these are like some world that other people made. So I can upload my whole world, or I can upload specific objects. And I'll probably go more into that, like actually doing it maybe in the future, and maybe looking at my website, because I actually tried this once, and it worked really successfully, where you can see the world that I made, and you can even zoom into it if you have a strong enough PC. It's quite laggy, but if you have a strong enough PC, then you can like zoom into it and look around, and it's really nice. It's like an easy way for someone without VR headset to view your work in detail as well. It's really cool, and with perspective. But what I want to say, yeah, so basically that's the Poly library, and here you can, for example, these are like so I can download my models, or there's featured models. For example, this. So these models are always come in like one whole grouping, so you cannot like ungroup them. This is the thing. And they have some unique features which I'll talk about later. But yeah, that's basically what they are. So if you don't want to make a certain object, or you want to use someone else's work, which I probably won't do in my creations, but it's a cool thing if you want to make things really look good. You can just use this sort of stuff, or you can even use it as furniture, like a Nintendo Switch and all sorts. It's really cool, and you can like them from the website to help them to put them in here, so you can download them. So yeah, that's the Poly library. So if you go here, now we know what that is. We know what guides are. So far, these four we don't know. So I'm just trying to picture what we know and don't know. We've talked, I believe, about all these tools, but I'll talk about later here the camera. So I don't think we talked about camera really. Basically, it's really simple. You can see I can make like a video, and you can see the video actually has some very smoothness, so it makes it as smooth as possible. You can make a like snapshot, a screenshot. So you create a screenshot. Apparently you can make a GIF, so if you make multiple pictures and puts them together into a file. Basically, whenever you do something with the camera, it downloads it into your into your PC, and you can use it as a file and upload it to, I'm sure, to the Poly website, or you can just use it as a certain, like Tilt Brush as a tool to make certain items or pictures in general. So a 5-second GIF, this probably makes consistent pictures. In fact, we'll try it. Yeah, you can see, I think on the left, that's a timer, and now it's a GIF captured, and that goes to my PC. You can see it, I think, downloading. Okay, so that's the camera tool. Then teleport we talked about, recolor, we talked about all these tools. So we basically know everything except those four. Then here, this is very simple. I don't know if I talked about it, but you click here to save on the left side. And on the right side, you can save a new file. So you can keep this file as it is and save what you've done on a new file. If you want to come back to this, for example. Or if you want to experiment and not have it permanently there. Then you can clear the whole sketch, which I'm definitely not going to do. But don't worry, I'm pretty sure there's a warning sign. So once you click this, it doesn't automatically clear it. Then there's beginner mode and advanced mode, which we've definitely already talked about last time. Also a small thing, I just want to make this sort of the video where I concisely talk about everything that I haven't really talked about, and I do know. So for example here, when let's say I pick this dropper tool and I don't want to use it, how do I go back? So there's two options. The other one I'll talk about later, but the one which is good is you go close to it again and it resets, and then you can cancel it and switch and to choose another thing. So then the spectator camera. So this is really interesting. Let's now, first of all, upload this. I tried this already. It uploads this whole world as a sketch onto my PC, where I can then upload it to the Poly website. Accounts. This is just, you can sign in Sketchfab. I think that's the account of that Poly website, and my Google account and Drive is connected. Featured sketch, this is mainly worlds, so the other one's more objects, and this is just worlds. And you can also like them, and this just shows all my sketches I've made. Here you can see how I've played with one of the tools, which I'll talk about later. Or I'll say it now. It's actually I'll show it. So all those worlds were made just for guess the word, which is a sort of a mini game where I've tried it with my friends. And it works really well. It's basically a fun way to use Tilt Brush to do sort of draw my thing. If you know that, it's like you get given a word, or Hangman even. You get given a word, and then you have to draw it, and the people have to guess. And there's always a category under it. So if you want to make it easier, you can give them a category. And what's really cool is they cannot see it. You can see the word on here, but they won't see it. It's programmed like that. So yeah, let's keep the lab here. So what was I talking about? Spectator camera. So this is the spectator camera. So right now you can see here, for now it's on camera mode. As I move across, you might not see it, but there's 4 different modes, I believe. There's in a second mode, it's static, which I'll show now. You'll see the camera position change. I'm gonna move it. So it's basically, you can make like a selfie camera. So like here, you can probably see, you can see my head and my arms. And basically, I'm moving the camera's perspective. And this is a static camera. So for example, this is really cool. Let's say I want to, like this. Let's say I want to put it really far. Okay. So like up here, while I work, and then you can basically make like a time lapse or something, which could be a cool idea for my future product like creations. And then so that's stationary. The next mode, which I'll show now, is figure 8. So this is very simple. It just moves in a figure 8 depending on the orientation. So if I orientate it like down, it would make a figure 8 downwards. So it can go in every orientation. And the last one is a circle camera, and it's probably the most useful because it's easy. It's like it shows all perspective of your work, and it's much more interesting for the viewer. And you can see here that it just rotates the whole spectator thing in a large circle. The circle cannot be changed in height, so even if I go like this, it still goes horizontally and not vertically. However, you can tilt the camera, as you can see. Now I'm gonna go back. This is probably very weird when I move the camera the whole time. So that's spectator camera. Let's just see what I wrote. So yeah, you can move it. So what I was doing, there's a little. It's hard to. I don't know how to show what I see. Or actually, no, I do. Wait, where is it? Wait, actually, where is it? Is it not? Oh no, okay, I can't. Basically, I see a little outline, a square of the camera spot, with a few lines showing the perspective, the width of the perspective, and then there's a little line under it where it's sort of like a stick where I can grab and then move it around. So that's what I meant. I can grip to move. I can change the mode with a little slider, as you could see, and then I talked about the two main tools, the figure 8 and the circle. Next, the local media. So this is another one from the labs. So the local media library, basically, as you can see here, there's 3 options. Well, let me just go from here. So there's models, images, and videos, which can be paused. So this is interesting. So these are basically files which you download, which are in the file like style of Tilt Brush, so like a 3D model. So these are directly, rather than from the Poly website, they're directly on as a file. In the Tilt Brush folders, I assume. So yeah, you can probably go straight to the folder from there. But for example, you can add local models. Well, basically, it's like you can add a file of a model, like a Poly library model. You can add images, which is really cool actually, because you don't see anything from the back, and often you don't really get lots of images. Like, everything's 3D, and it might be a cool change of perspective to have a 2D object. And finally, there's videos, which are also act the same from the back. But videos are pretty cool because they actually animate. And if you have a really complex animation, they can really stand out. So you can see it, and you can actually pause it. And even if I throw this away, it stays there. So now, now I literally have a picture, which is pretty cool. So that's, well, let me go back to the wait, this was here. So yeah, that's that. Then the model pin. So this is one I was gonna talk about later. Maybe I should go in order. Okay. So exports sketch and file on PC. So yeah, this export button. So basically, when I click it, it exports the whole sketch as a file on my PC, which I can do what I want with, which is pretty cool. And it calls it a certain, like, for me it was like Untitled 18, but then you can probably change the name. Obviously you can change the name on the PC. Then these two are very simple. They're just Twitch and YouTube chat buttons. So if I did a YouTube live stream or Twitch live stream, drawing in VR, I could just look through here, which is really cool actually. It's an easy way to do it. And then guess the word, as I've already talked about. Now the last one is model pin. So yeah, here. Well, I talked about this in the tips and tricks. So basically, let's put that away. Here, there's 3 options and then more options. So we know all of this. We know the sketchbook. And these are, by the way, the numbers. So you can go across all of your sketches. Here, there's a lot of custom ones or featured ones. But back to the more options, there's 3 options. Labs, settings we'll get to later, and tips and tricks. So tips and tricks, basically these are all sorts of tips and tricks which a game shows you off the bat, so you get a good start so you're not too confused in the beginning. But I've actually learned quite a few new things from it, or things I'm reminded of. So one is to hold B on the drawing hand for a quick menu. So let's say I have an item, and I select. Wait. Oh wait. Sorry. Yeah. Wait. Oh wait. Sorry. Oh, I'm confusing myself. Sorry. Wait. Let's just. So, oh yeah, right, okay, this was much simpler than I was thinking, sorry. I was getting confused with the other ones. So basically here there's a B button on my drawing hand, which is the upper button. I was clicking the A button, that's what confused me. And basically it creates a quick menu with the 5 main tools you would use. The pin, the selection, the recolor, and dropper, and eraser. For me, probably the most used would be eraser and brush. So then I can erase and go back to brush, draw something, erase, or even selection is very useful. And yeah, that's just a quick way of accessing it, which I should use more, and is a very useful tool. And then under labs and pin, now let's finally get to it. Now we're going to learn about what pins are. So basically it has the same minus and plus function, but let's say here, so here I'm on plus now, which is with the A button, like for, I forgot what tool it was, the mirror tool, I believe. Or another tool where it's also minus and plus. The selection tool, right. But basically it's another sphere with a pin in it. And when you go on an object, which is either a guide, like this cube, or a poly item, I don't really need to show that. Well, let me actually just make a guide. So here I have a cubic guide. And basically when I click the pin button and I hit it, it pins it. And now you can see when I hover over it, there's a pin on it. And basically, when I grip it now with my grip button, I can't move it, and I can't resize it. I can only resize the whole world. So basically, the pin makes it so that it locks it in place. And and then if you hold, so that's the usefulness of the pin. And if you click the A button again, goes into minus mode, which means you cancel the pin. So now you see it's movable again. So let me go with this quick menu back to brush. Now we're almost at the end. If I hold A on those two, on one of those two items, I shouldn't have removed it, sorry. I'm wasting a bit of time. So if you hold A on it, so you can see when I grab it, there's a little lock button under my A button. Only when I grab it. And then when I hold it, it locks it into a certain orientation. And these orientations are based on 90 degrees. So you can see, it might be a bit hard to see with a cube. Maybe I should make it an irregular size, a regular object. But you can see I can rotate it at different axes. And all these axes are at 90 degrees at all orientations. And this is actually the same as the straight edge tool, which I think we've talked about before, where you can also hold that button to make straight edges at a certain grid orientation. Except with that, I think it's at 45 degrees differences. Then a really cool one, which is the last thing from the tips and tricks, is on the back of the drawing brush, you can see random infos. So for example, it tells me something about my PC here. And my speakers I'm using, which is pretty useful to check like what's to check how I'm using my PC. And it tells me, first of all, where the documents of my exported files are saved, and lots of other things. For example, when you group and ungroup, every message which pops up generally is what gets shown on the back. And so yeah, this is a really useful thing if you need some info of what you just did. And now finally to settings. So this is the last thing for today. So here on the right side, the more options on the right side, we're not going to go over these yet. And then I'm probably going to go over this a bit later because it's a bit more complex. But so these are the 3 main options. There's only 3 in the settings, plus this. So basically, the first one is a brush tip angle. And it's very simple. Here you can see my brush tip, it's pointing downwards. So I need to point upwards like that way for it to point towards the screen. Whereas if I change it, now I have to point more towards the screen. So my brush tip angle changes in degrees. So I like it at roughly that angle. Then visual quality, obviously this has to do, so let me just read because I wrote all this. So I can change the desktop visual quality on my desktop, which is a very simple thing. And this can change the quality, for example, of my videos, depending on how my PC is handling video recording. Then lastly, you can simplify stroke, which is basically, I said, an angle refresh rate. So let's go with the wet paint. And settings. I lost the settings. Oh yeah, here, if I go to lowest and make it really thick, it's more obvious. You can see those like clicky, irregular updates. And the reason is because of that, what I call the angle refresh rate. So it makes things much less smooth, but much easier to handle for the PC. But this is generally obviously not recommended, and maximum is always the best. So that's basically it. And lastly, there's a sketch cost, or it shows like the difficulty to run the world. And basically right now this has on this world, I've made a new world, is very easy to load, so it's low. But if it gets high, that's when I should be careful, and it might lag a lot. I'm experiencing a bit of lag, I'm not sure why. And lastly, it shows the version of Toolbrush. That's very simple. But it's interesting if you remember the number, you want to know if there's a new version. Finally, I noticed a thing, and I wanted to update on that, is that this is thick, like a thick brush. What is it called? I think it was with thick paint. And you can see how there's a shadow. It's really cool. And this is a matte what did we call it? It's a matte hull, right? So basically, I don't know if this is only a matte hull, but in general, it's good to know that thicker paints have shadows, unlike others. So for example, all these have shadows. Darker ones like the duct tape and the paper have shadows. And also like really thick ones like the disco have shadows. But other ones or petals. But like for example, okay, Lightwire as well. But for example, what was it? Okay, Streamers doesn't have. Most effects don't have things. So generally the thicker, more prominent brushes have shadows. So that's it for this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Until next time. Bye.